Welcome to Ballsy Women in Business. We're kind of wonderful. Hello, it's Elizabeth Plouffe, and I'm here today with Ballsy in Review. And for those of you that might not know, Ballsy is the Women in Entrepreneurship group that I started a few months ago, and started that in response to the fact that there's no problem-solving groups out there that don't require you to pay thousands of dollars to sit around and share ideas with people. And that's not super fun for me. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to try anyway and see what happens. And so Ballsy Women in Business was born. And so today we had our Ballsy breakfast. And honestly, it was fantastic. I mean, it went on, much like I do sometimes, it went on a little longer than I had planned. But the organic conversation that came from the topic was such that it was honestly worth pursuing. And so last month we focused on goal setting, which I know for January is sort of a go-to typical kind of thing, but in business it's a little different than personal. And we were also discussing the difference between resolutions and goals and how you don't necessarily take resolutions as seriously as you take goals. At least I don't. And what the deficit can be to your business. And I'm a recent convert to the whole goal planning, reflection, going through that process, which can take a month or two, but I'm an absolute convert now. I fully believe in the validity of that process and have used a few tools, which I shared again this morning. So this morning we decided to focus our question on overcoming obstacles when it comes to achieving goals. And I was really excited. I mean, I'm excited every time we get together, but this morning, out of the 7 women that gathered, and the group is intentionally small, 5 were new, brand spanking new. And that was awesome. But the conversation started and didn't stop. There was no weird pauses. There was no, everybody had an opportunity to introduce themselves and talk about what they do. And just I'm pausing because I'm just so blown away by everybody's willingness to discuss and share their tools and tricks and experiences around goal setting and what works for them. And we did talk a little bit about what it's like to be a mom and be an entrepreneur. And part of the reason was I was so impressed. There was a set of twin sisters, Cherry and Charisse, and they work for Primerica and came out to the group. And this is not a group where you come to pitch and really push business and all that kind of stuff. It's not how we roll. And if that happens, people are encouraged not to return. This is about building business and solving problems and what have you. And Charisse was committed to coming, and she has a 4-month-old son named Lincoln. And babysitter wasn't able to come until 10 o'clock, and she packed that boy up, and he came with her. I thought that was freaking awesome. I am 100% behind that, especially because he was extremely well behaved and just a lovely little lad. It doesn't always work out that way. And if your kids are rambunctious and energetic and at an age where you can't contain them in a stroller or something, and I have 2 kids, so I'm not being like, Sherlock Holmes and children are annoyances. I love my kids. I love energy that kids have, but they cannot go everywhere. It's just not appropriate. But it was today, and everybody in the group was thrilled that she was able to make it out and made that effort to bring Lincoln with her. And it just really demonstrated the level of commitment that you can try and have. It depends on your circumstances. It absolutely depends on circumstances. But we've discussed before in the past how challenging it can be for working moms and moms who are entrepreneurs to make these kinds of commitments when kids are in the picture. So I have 2 teenagers, right? So my kids are completely self-sufficient. And one's actually an adult because he's 18. It still provides its own set of challenges, but you need to find a way, I believe anyway, you need to find a way if you're committed to your business to make it work somehow or another. So anyway, to get off the mommy soapbox, some of the things that we talked about today, I have a whole page of notes. I was so excited. We talked first about the obstacles, and everybody offered not only obstacles, but within that discussion were other sources for solutions. So the obstacles that we talked about were being mindful of using distractions as a means of avoiding your goals. And one member shared that she uses cooking as a means of distraction. She's not a huge cook, but when she comes up against a block, or when she's in a situation where she just doesn't want to move forward on something, she'll move into the kitchen under the guise of doing something useful for her family. And it is, and it's valuable, but it's recognizing the mindset that put you there. Somebody else offered paralysis by analysis. When you go into huge amounts of detail around any type of project or goal or whatever you're trying to achieve, and you focus more on the amount of detail involved than actually being active on it. And we talked about social media as a distraction, office chatter, dabbling in a variety of projects or goals versus whittling that down. Busy brain, which is something that I think a lot of women, I'm going to say suffer with, because it's exhausting, especially at night. Outside excuses, fear of success and imposter syndrome, and sometimes being in a situation where you have inadvertently surrounded yourself with negative influences, negative people, and how they can derail you from achieving your goals. So some of the solutions we came up with, which were kind of cool, the using domestic chores as an excuse was simply reminding yourself when you're going in there and you're not quite sure why you're there. Are you doing laundry when you should be working on a project, or are you, especially if you work at home, are you just using chores around the house to avoid working on your business? And I used to do that too. It was a good time to do laundry and do the dishwasher and all that kind of stuff. And that's simply because I wasn't in the headspace yet to move forward with my business being successful. Thank God I got over that. The paralysis by analysis and getting lost in detail versus creating something, it was suggested that you actually, and I, in an odd way, I think it'd be really effective, allocating time within your calendar, within your schedule for the day, that you are only allowed 30 minutes to delve into details and do all of that stuff. And once that time is up, you need to take action on something and not continue hiding behind that planning phase. Social media, I didn't know you could do this, but you can put a DND on your phone, a do not disturb, so that you don't get the notifications and what have you. Didn't know. I do mute my phone on a regular basis. Never thought of that as a tactic for dealing with notifications, but definitely works. And just don't log in the first place if you are on your desktop or your laptop or what have you. For office chatter, people popping into your office or getting caught up in a photocopier discussion or what have you. Obviously, the easy one is to go into your office and close the door. You can also, I would suggest anyway, put a funny sign on your door saying, genius is burning, come back later. Something to that effect. If you've ever read Little Women, then that's a reference to Little Women. And I suggested that you use office chatter as a reward. If you put a good 2 solid hours in on a project, then give yourself a 15-minute break, which you should anyway for your health, to get moving. And take a walk outside your door and see who's available. Make sure you're not interrupting them and derailing their goals. And have that little chatter, have that little release. Dabbling in a variety of goals. One thing I've just learned from doing my goal workshop is take a moment to write out all your big audacious goals. Make a huge list, everything you can possibly think of, and then chop that shit down. You need to be ruthless in removing anything from that list that doesn't move your business forward. And the suggestion is to have, 5 big goals for the year, which I know sounds not like a lot, but potentially on the width and breadth of the goal, it can be huge. And when you have a huge list and you don't take the time to whittle it down, it can be daunting to look at that list and you just don't move forward on anything, because what do you choose and how do you allocate your time? So keeping that list short and sweet and making sure that you create, and we'll reference in a second a suggestion by David Allen, who's the author of Getting Things Done. Making sure that you create an action list versus a to-do list. There is a difference. So busy brain, for women, it's, and this is the second time I've seen it, there's an analogy that men's brains are like waffles and women's brains are like spaghetti, which is true. So men put things in compartments, and women, for the most part, everything touches each other. So we could be thinking about I don't know, growth and scale for a certain aspect of our business, and all of a sudden growth and scale turns into, oh, I have to book the kids a physical. Oh, I'm out of milk. Oh, I need to go to the grocery store. Like it's kind of crazy, but that's how our heads go. And particularly if it's the nighttime monkey brain, what I do anyway is I keep a pen and paper beside my bed. And if it won't leave me alone, then I will physically get up and turn a light on and write it down. Or a better suggestion is if you have a planner or something that you paper-wise or electronic, whatever works for you, every night, spend 5 minutes, identify some things that have been niggling at your brain, and put them somewhere that you won't forget. Because part of busy brain is that your brain is afraid of forgetting something. You've got so many things on the go that it'll just keep poking you in the shoulder, and interrupting your sleep it's the worst. I mean, I'll do a thing one day on the negative impact of sleep deprivation, but so these are some ways to handle some of that. Outside excuses, you need a build buddy or a somebody who's not afraid to call bullshit with you, and definitely let you vent and let you give a voice to your frustrations and what have you. But then be open to providing you feedback that puts a little clarity on potentially the BS component of those outside excuses. And it can be hard to hear, and as a friend, it can be difficult to give. But I think it's crucial for business success to have somebody like that. Fear of success and imposter syndrome, that is something that I have found a lot of resource by listening to Marie Forleo and Oprah Winfrey and Brene Brown and all these hugely successful women who suffer from this. I don't think I've found a man yet who suffers from this, so maybe it's just a woman thing, I don't know. But when you realize that giants in their field like that suffer from the exact same thing and have managed to work past it and still be successful, it puts into perspective that you too have the ability to get over and deal with it and move on and be successful in your business. And part of that is time, and part of that I firmly believe is in networking and constantly talking about your business and finding ways to work on your business, finding people to work with on your business. There's a particular aspect of my business, for an example, that requires a face-to-face component because the whole project is driven by the conversation that I have with a client. And so it's not something that I can do on my own, or it's challenging. And my ultimate goal is to turn this into a teaching tool so people can do it for themselves or recognize the opportunity to do it for themselves. And it's around content creation. But knowing that that's a challenge for me and knowing that's a goal I want to achieve, I'm reaching out. And a couple of friends have said yes, and they're willing to sit down and go through the process with me. And the more I talk about it and the more I do it, the more confident I am and the more the imposter syndrome goes away. So I highly, highly recommend creating opportunities to work and be active on your business and moving forward in that capacity. So one of the last ones that we talked about was the negative influence of people around you. And if you're in a situation where people aren't at the same place that you are, or, they're having struggles of their own, there may be underlying jealousy, there may be, a variety of feelings going on. But when those people and their negativity, and I'm pausing because it blows my mind that people can do that, when they unintentionally or intentionally start to sabotage your efforts on your business, it's time for you to take stock of what's going on and whether the value of that person in your life is worth the personal sacrifice that you may have to make. And I had somebody in my life who's, it's a situation that I've handled, but at the time, my husband couldn't understand what the challenge was, and I talked him through it, and I said, if a friend behaved the way this person's behaving, you'd tell me to kick them to the curb, so what's the difference? And if you wouldn't treat somebody the way you're being treated by these negative people, if you wouldn't make them feel that way, regardless of the relationship, there comes a time where you have to evaluate how much time you should be investing in that situation and remove yourself. And these were some of the solutions that we came up. Ghosting somebody, which is not great, but your mental health is more important. So some of the things that people have used to deal with these obstacles and challenges have been mentorship, reminders of how passionate you are about your business, which can include, I have an accomplishment jar that I do, family support, and, I'm jazzed up by deadlines. So maybe somehow harnessing the feeling when you've beaten a deadline and remembering that on the hard days that, you can achieve can be helpful. We did discuss David Allen, who's the author of Getting Things Done. And he advises that when you have goals and tasks that you need to complete, that it is absolutely necessary to create a 3-part list. And part of that list has to be obviously what you want to accomplish. The other parts of that involve, sorry, my computer's just gone shit sideways, also involve creating the to-do, and then finding out if you need somebody to help you, or what kind of resource is required to complete the task that you're working towards. Well, that's why it's doing it the wrong way. And then the action component of that, when are you going to get it done and what can you do right away to achieve it? Because writing a to-do list is kind of useless. I mean, it keeps things in order, don't get me wrong. But when you put that action item around it, you're more likely to get it done. And you're more likely to achieve it quickly. One of the last things that we discussed, and we did talk about Quantum Leap Seminar and Kanban boards. An author was mentioned who I haven't looked up yet. She's got a TED Talk, Suzanne Cain. So I'm going to look up that as well. One of the last things that we discussed was the personality of an alpha female. And one of the reasons that came up is because for a very long time, I am an alpha female, not intentionally, it's just the way I'm built. I'm not an aggressive person by any stretch, but I've been told on more than one occasion that I walk into a room and people immediately know I'm not somebody, it's going to sound so awful, I'm not somebody to trifle with. And it's completely unintentional. It's not something that I put out or what have you. And one of the reasons we were talking about it is because you need to be aware, as a woman especially, if you are an alpha or a beta, and there are those personalities that you need to check out, but especially if you're an alpha, is being aware of the impact that has on other people, and being mindful of almost controlling it. And that sounds so awful, but when you're talking to somebody else who is also an alpha female, they get it. They understand what you're trying to get at. And it's more because of the reactions that I've received from people when I tell them that I'm an entrepreneur and I own my own business and what have you. Some of them do really well and are like, woo, that's fantastic. And others take a physical step back, or their body language completely changes. And I'm not sure if it's because they're making assumptions or what have you, but that could be part of being an alpha female. So I was advising these young ladies, or 24, that came to the meeting today, that it's something that I think you get partly with age, and something with awareness, that if you are an alpha female and going after your goals, that you need to be conscious of how you're approaching situations and how you're talking to people, because it's great to be assertive in your business. You need to have that drive to be successful. But going too far can end up hurting your business and alienating people. And the whole goal for being in business is to create partnerships and success. So being mindful can not only work very positively in helping you overcome obstacles and challenges to achieving your goals and finding solutions, but also to being mindful of different personality characteristics that might be having a negative influence on your business and on your achieving your goals. So it was a really diverse conversation today. I absolutely loved it, and thank you to everybody that came out. Holly and I were the only returning members, and then we had Cherry and Charisse, who are twin sisters. We had Amanda and Rose and Wendy that came out, and we had people in financial, we had people in creative, we had people in communications. Holly is a family mediator for businesses, and I loved the idea sharing and the support that everybody gave without hesitation. which I think is what all groups and women should be capable and willing to do. So that's pretty much it for today, is just realizing that distractions from your goals can be managed, that recognition of that is the biggest thing, and getting over your personal mind chatter to work towards your goals is key. And if you're having struggles with that, reach out to somebody. Nobody has all the solutions. Nobody can solve all their own problems. And being a part of a group like Ballsy, or, having a build buddy or whatever you want to do, is the first step to overcoming these things and not feeling so alone and struggling with finding that direction. So those are my action items, I guess, is, take a look at what you want to achieve. Take a look at what might be getting in the way. Think of solutions within your network, people or products or services or what have you, that can help you overcome those challenges, and then take a step towards them. Take your big audacious list of goals, turn it into a manageable list of at most, hopefully 5, and go for it. Be mindful of going for it and be successful. And so, as always, just know that you have the guts and glory to create your own story. One of my other podcasts is Entrepreneurial Entrails, which is all about the stories of being an entrepreneur. And you can check me out on Twitter at MCVPloof. You can visit MCV Communications, which is where I do all kinds of stuff. And Instagram and all those great places. But I hope you're having a fantastic day, regardless of when you're listening to this. And I hope this has given you some ways to move towards your business goals. And that's pretty much it. It's been great talking to you, and we'll talk soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.